Hello! Today's topic is asking why it is you can't stop playing Dead by Daylight. To do this, we're going to discuss operant conditioning and compulsion loops, look at rewards in games, gamification models, and discuss video game addiction with a touch of psychology to finish off. It's become somewhat common for the DBD player base, or at least a vocal minority of it, to exclaim their dissatisfaction with the game, be it in their tweets, Reddit posts, post-game chat, or even sometimes their in-game usernames. They state how they hate the game, thirst for a competitor to come along and replace it, and generally don't seem very happy. What is interesting about this though, is even though many players will publicly show this frustration with the game, they continue to play it, day in and day out. It's as if they can't move away from Dead by Daylight. You could say they have some kind of compulsion. The term operant conditioning was coined by Skinner in 1937. It refers to essentially training behaviour with some kind of reinforcement or reward. You may have heard of Skinner's box. The basic concept here was Skinner applied stimuli of either food or relief from discomfort when rats pressed a lever or pigeons pecked at a disc. The action followed by the reinforcement/reward. Through this study, it was found that some form of reinforcement or reward quickly taught the participant to repeat the action. It was also found that the more predictable the reward, the sooner the participant would engage in the behaviour less. So upon pulling the lever and food being delivered immediately to the rat, it would only engage with the behaviour when needed, so when it was hungry. Whereas if the reinforcement was more unpredictable, participants would engage more with the behaviour. An example of this in the modern world could be gambling and the unknown chance of winning and the unknown amount of the reward. It has been suggested that gambling activates the brain's reward system in a similar way to how some drugs do, which is what makes it so addictive. When operant conditioning is applied to game design, it is referred to as a compulsion loop. These are defined as a habitual designed chain of activities that will be repeated to gain a neurochemical reward, a feeling of pleasure and/or relief from pain. Basically, a compulsion loop is a repeatable set of tasks in a game that the player is trained to complete to seek some form of reward, and this reward makes us happy. These are designed to be somewhat addictive as well. At this point, I do want to clarify that the compulsion loop is different from the core loop, which we discussed in a past video. The core loop is the primary set of mechanical activities the player undertakes when playing the game, such as, from the survivor's perspective, to complete 5 of the 7 generators, evade the killer, and survive the match. Whereas the compulsion loop is the repetitive rewarding stimuli, so what drives the player, like a feeling of victory or blood points. But why would anyone need blood points? What are they even for? Discussing how players utilise rewards, a paper by Wang and Sun in 2012 breaks reward purpose into 4 categories: advancement, review, sociality, and cooperate/compete. Advancement refers to how players use rewards to make game progress, so in DBD, unlocking perks. Review relates to the completionist type gamer, where reviewing rewards provides entertainment and a sense of accomplishment, so looking at your Steam achievements or through past completed tomes. Sociality is about having cosmetics or achievements you can show off to establish status. In DBD this might be prestiging your survivors and killers and unlocking their special gruesome attire. And cooperate/compete, which refers to sharing rewards of each other or hoarding powerful items to retain an advantage, so maybe holding on to useful items and offerings to help a friend when playing Survivor. The paper goes on to suggest rewards can be used to establish status, attract attention, and build social connections with other players, as well as make other game mechanisms more enjoyable by setting goals for players. So essentially these drive the player to want to keep playing, and it can be argued DBD utilises them all in some way, but I think the one most closely associated with a compulsion loop would be advancement, with the use of the blood web and blood points. The blood web is a place that both survivors and killers can spend their blood points to purchase nodes. The nodes consist of add-ons, items, and perks. By leveling the blood web, you can gain access to character-specific perks for other survivors and killers, and you can unlock special prestiged cosmetics once you hit level 50 3 times. So essentially, there's a lot of grinding. Stop giggling! What I mean is there is a lot to unlock. But doesn't that sound like a lot of work? Why would someone want to unlock everything? And how can it be addictive? Maybe it has something to do with gamification models. One paper details 3 specifically. These are freemium, immersion, and grindcore. Freemium is the one that most have already heard of. This is when a game is essentially free, but features some level of grinding such as resource gathering to upgrade buildings. But you can pay money to avoid this element and speed the game up. So the game has a strong compulsion loop, but the business model hopes that the players will eventually pay to avoid it. Immersion relates to keeping the user in a flow of gameplay. To quickly summarise game flow, it is where the design of the game balances around skill and difficulty to attain a feeling of flow, where the player becomes completely immersed in the game and its environment. These styles of games don't tend to rely on compulsion loops, and I think it's fair to say DBD mostly fits into this category with its core gameplay loops. But DBD also fits under grindcore. Open world games often fit into this category, relying on forcing players to have to collect and grind before moving forward with the game. DBD is less cruel than this, but certainly keeps the player occupied with an almost punishingly large amount of perks to unlock, each with 3 tiers among them, meaning you must unlock the same perk 3 times for it to be at its most efficient. Achieving this for all characters is a lot. What's interesting about this is it works. There are plenty of players with a ridiculously large amount of hours with lots still to unlock, and they keep going. It drives them to play more. As of the 17th of May, Behaviour have revealed plans to readdress the grind, and change prestiging to a seemingly limitless height. Perks will be easier to attain, and you can now continue to prestige your favourite character to show off their prestige levels. But this does also mean that the potential grind is now never ending. So to summarise thus far, operant conditioning models and compulsion loops have similarities to gambling driven behaviours, with unpredictable rewards and positive reinforcement for specific actions. On top of this, the blood web isn't far separated from the gamification model of grindcore, often seen in MMO open world games, which in themselves have been suggested to be quite addictive. So let's discuss gaming addiction itself. The World Health Organization describes gaming addiction as a pattern of gaming behaviour, digital gaming or video gaming, characterised by impaired control over gaming. Increasing priority given to gaming over other activities to the extent that gaming takes precedence over other interests, and daily activities and continuation or escalation of gaming despite the occurrence of negative consequences. We've all had those awkward post-games with someone who will berate the game and blame its flaws for their rough match. On more than one occasion, I've gone on to bump into the same player the next match. Clearly frustrated, why haven't they taken a break? This could be suggested to be a continuation of gaming despite the occurrence of negative consequences. The trouble is it is sometimes quite difficult to differentiate between gaming addiction and simply a feeling of flow. A paper looking at this very topic discussed how current measurements and research of both are inadequate at distinguishing between the two. But we do have examples of the negative psychosocial and psychological effects of gaming addiction. These include less attention to education and hobbies, ignoring close relationships like family and friends, a decrease in sleep and rest, depression, ignoring life goals, increased feelings of loneliness, aggressive behaviour, and more. So although it is difficult to measure, warning signs are possible to see. Gaming addiction tends to affect a very small portion of people, so although Dead by Daylight has elements which could be related to addictive behaviour, it's unlikely many fit this definition of addiction, but it is worth keeping an eye on oneself. Going back to my opening statement though, an increasing number of players have openly negative perspectives about the game, but continue to play. Maybe the compulsion to keep playing is based on something else. Negative biases is described as a tendency for negative objects, events, or information to predominate over positive. It is the idea that we are more likely to allow a negative event to have a greater impact on our psychological state than positive events would, and we're more likely to believe negative information. It is theorised that this has an evolutionary purpose, as those who paid more attention to the bad things around them were more likely to survive. A study into negativity bias in relation to emotional disorders suggested an underappreciation of positive objects and events may underlie vulnerability to emotional disorders, meaning a more negative cognitive style could make you more susceptible to anxiety and depression. From the get-go, we have a predisposition to be negative, and this can spiral into deeper negative attitudes throughout our lives. As mentioned in my video about why you love to watch Dead by Daylight, we discussed the concept of virtual communities. It is possible that as members of a virtual community with a negative attitude, we become more accustomed to this negative mindset. It is something we utilise to connect with others and bond. A study by Boson looked at interpersonal chemistry through negativity, finding there seems to be something especially delicious about the process of sharing our grievances with other people. They suggest we form stronger connections with others through sharing negative attitudes about a third party rather than positive. So are you addicted to Dead by Daylight? Hopefully not, but if you are, I would recommend seeking support as soon as possible. Outside of addiction though, it might be possible many find themselves utilising a negative environment for a sense of community in an online space. And this could be why so many are unable to stop playing Dead by Daylight, even though on the surface they appear to dislike it. Hating on DBD is used to build relationships and connect with people. It could explain why people are so keen to publicly display their disdain for it. They seek to connect with others. The worry is that this may generate further negative perspectives and further to emotional based disorders. I theorise that for a healthier state of mind, the next time you're thinking about how much you dislike Dead by Daylight, maybe take a break, maybe some distance from negatively driven communities online. Or find something in the game you do enjoy. Like for me, it's Head On. As always, thanks for watching, and I'd love to hear what your thoughts are in the comments. How do you feel about the negative attitudes towards DBD? Like and subscribe for more content like this, and have a great day everyone.